Yeah, and that actually does dovetail with my 30th birthday too. So it's kind of like we'll knock two birds out with one stone. June 1st.
June 1st. Okay. Okay.
Big year, I guess.
When your back starts moving,
Exactly.
Good evening. It's my pleasure to call the Peoria Public Schools Board of Education meeting for May 10th, 2021 to order. Would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Costick? Here. Mr. Klaus?
Here.
Dr. Reinking?
Here.
Mr. Walther?
Here.
Mr. Wilson?
Here.
Mrs. Ross?
Here.
Mr. Shaw?
Here.
7 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Announcements. We'll start with Mr. Walther.
Thank you, Mr. President. High school vaccination clinics. All 3 high school buildings will continue to host on-site COVID-19 vaccinations for students 16 years and older next week. Those 16 and 17-year-olds who are interested will need to also have a consent form filled out by a parent or guardian. Contact your school office if you and your student are interested. The benefits of receiving the vaccine include protecting your family and friends, being able to continue to participate in sports and other activities even if you're exposed to someone with the virus, not needing to quarantine from school if exposed to positive cases in the classroom, and being able to participate in summer camps and other summer activities. We anticipate that the 12 to 15-year-old age group will soon be authorized to receive the vaccine as well, and we are preparing to provide opportunities for those students to be vaccinated.
Thank you, Mr. Walther. Mr. Klaus?
Baseball and softball skills clinic, parents of PPS 2nd to 5th grade students. Baseball and softball season is underway. It's time to get the skills ready. Peoria Public Schools is offering a free skills clinic to all 2nd to 5th grade boys and girls of all skill levels on Sunday, May 16th at the Peoria Stadium. The entire event is free, including a sack lunch and transportation. You can sign up on the form posted on the district website or reference the flyer being distributed to your students.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Klaus. Mrs. Ross?
Summertime tutoring resources. Summer school registration recently closed, but there are still plenty of tutoring resources available for students during the summer. For more information or to get started with tutoring, contact your school principal today.
Thank you, Mrs. Ross. Vice President Wilson?
Thank you. High school graduations for Peoria Public School seniors will take place Saturday, May 15th, 2021. Peoria High School's commencement ceremony will begin at 11 a.m. Manual High School's commencement ceremony will begin at 2 p.m. Richwoods High School commencement ceremony will begin at 4 p.m. Masks will be required and seating in each stadium will be physically distanced. Each of the ceremonies will also be live streamed. Please refer to your principal's emails to view the live stream link or visit the district website at psd150.org.
Thank you, Vice President Wilson. Dr. Reinking?
School site kindergarten roundup events. Many of our PPS schools are hosting kindergarten roundup events during the next several weeks. A full schedule is on the district website and details are on each school website. These roundup events are a great opportunity for families with an incoming kindergartner next year to take a tour, meet the staff, and get your child acclimated to their new school. If you need more information, please contact your school principal.
Thank you, Dr. Reinking. Mrs. Costick?
Peoria Riverfront Museum Student and Family Pass. Peoria Public School families, there are just a few more weeks to visit the Peoria Riverfront Museum with your free Student Plus Family Pass. The pass allows any PPS family to participate in several of the museum's experiences, including the planetarium and the giant screen theater, all for free. Students who complete all 3 museum experiences by May 27th will win 2 passes to see T-Rex, the ultimate predator, an internationally acclaimed exhibition opening May 29th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Costick. I have an announcement. First, I'd like to acknowledge the bulletin boards. On my right, you have Lindbergh, and on my left, you have Keller, so thank you. The summer school employment opportunities. Peoria Public Schools has summer school employment opportunities for PPS employees at Glen Oak Community Learning Center, Treewind School, Charter Oak Primary School, Dr. Maud Sanders Primary School, and Sterling Middle School. Opportunities are available for both certified and non-certified staff. You can work one or both summer school sessions. Hours are Monday through Thursday, 8:15 a.m. to 2:45 p.m. with Fridays off. Certified positions available include literacy content facilitators, math content facilitators, and mini course instructors. For more information, please email Dr. Bott or call the administration building. Thank you. Next, we have Student Showcase. Peoria High School Football Big 12 Conference Champions. We have is Dr. Coleman here?
Dr. Coleman's not. You're stuck with me.
Okay, Mr. Dunn, Coach.
Board President Shaw, Vice President Wilson, board members, and Superintendent Karat, thank you for your support of athletics this year, not just at Peoria High School, but in our district. Your efforts made a huge difference, had a great impact in a very, very difficult year. So thank you. Vice President Wilson, thank you for attending Peoria High's Honors Day. That's a tremendous event when you have as many wonderful seniors as we have at Peoria High. It takes a long time to do an Honors Day. So thank you for attending our event last week. And Mr. Willis, thank you for inviting me to our meeting last week. The future of athletics in Peoria is very bright. It's my pleasure to introduce the Big 12 Conference champion football coach, Tim Thornton, state champion, Tim Thornton.
We just appreciate you guys having us out here and the recognition and whatnot. You know, the stuff that happens on the field seems to make the newspaper and that kind of stuff, but we're just as proud as the things that happen off the field. And just wanted to point out of our seniors that are leaving us this year, we've got at least 10 of them that will be going on to play college football with athletic aid. So the money that's coming in based on the efforts that they're putting forward in the weight room and on the field. As you know, most of our seniors are out of school already, but we do have some young ones here that came to see us. So if you guys want to come up, and a couple of them we're going to speak. So if you just want a couple words, come on up, guys. You're going to all come up.
So my name is Landon Newby Hossam, a part of the Big 12 champs. But as the people behind me said, I would like to thank all of you on the board for making sure we did have a season. Because a lot of us were worried we wouldn't have a season, stressing about it. Y'all came through and made sure we did. Which, as you should know, it makes a big impact on most of our lives. Because most of us, this is what we do and this is what we have. Like, it's really important to us. Like Coach Thornton said, we also do take the school serious. Like, we all focus on grades. And they make sure they push us during in the classroom to get our grades right and stay on track. So like I gotta say, thank all y'all. Have a great day.
Hi, my name is Nisha Robertson. I'm a junior, soon to be senior at Peoria High. I want to say thank you to the board for making sure that we had a season this year. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad that y'all pulled through for us. And we pulled through for y'all by being conference champions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Oh, board members, Mr. Walter.
And Mr. Thornton? Coach, before you leave, I just wanted to compliment you. I went to high school with your father. We were Woodruff grads there, and you were the coach at Woodruff there. And as good a coach as you are, I don't think people understand the impact you have on all these young men's lives and what you've done to make sure that they stay to the watching their classes and doing that stuff with it. And you've been just a huge impact on a lot of people. And I want to thank you. Your coaching is great, but what you do to their lives means more to me as a board member than what you've done. So I just want to thank you for that.
Thanks again. All right. Moving on to district presentations, we have the 2020-2021 budget amendment. Mr. McKenzie and Ms. Eman. Kind of a tough act to follow with the.
They'll be at 3.
I'm going to start, and then you're going to do the details. All right, good evening. We're here to talk about the 2020-2021 budget amendment to finish off this year. And our budget team is Mick Willis, myself, Carla Eman, and Mike McKenzie. This is something that we do every year. It's our usual practice to bring before the board a budget amendment at this time. The initial budget was more of an estimate with facts and figures that we knew at that time, at the beginning of the year, spring, summer before the year began. And now there's been changes in revenue and expenditures during the year, and that's what makes it necessary to amend the budget at this time. So the steps we go through then is there's the public notice that is done this week. And then we put the amended budget on display for 30 days. And then the next step is the board holds the public hearing for June 14th, and at that time they can adopt the budget. And Mike's going to go ahead and talk about some of the details here.
Yeah. This year we had a lot of changes. When we did the original budget, we were going to do an A-B schedule, and then we did a remote schedule, and so a lot of things changed in this budget. So we're not going to go into a lot of the details, just some of the higher level things, but I mean, so I just have 3 things here, but property taxes, we did see another decrease in property tax, expected property taxes of 2.11% this year. We originally budgeted a 1% decrease, so that affected the revenue side. The biggest part of the change this year in the budget is federal revenue, and that's the ESSER 1 grant, the ESSER 2 grant, really comes to about $40 million, plus all the other grants that have been received this year that change the budget. And when you have those revenues, when it comes to federal revenues, when we do the budget, we usually budget the entire grant, even though it might not be spent out in this year. But its revenues and expenses equal each other, so the net result is 0. Because if we don't spend the money, we won't get the money from the federal reserve or the federal government this year. So,
I'll just add a couple of
yeah.
And just that what we found more and more is we're getting the federal grants, and their fiscal years don't match our fiscal year. So we end up finding out about certain grant awards far later in the year. We had the R3, the cannabis sales, that was just wonderful, and we're just barely getting that up and going now. But we know that's going to be a strong revenue source going forward. They're really thrilled with that, and we do get a percentage of all of the sales tax on that. And then I started a little bit late. I'm thinking it was like September, kind of went into October. So those are some of the examples, and that's the Illinois Youth, I think the right words here, investment program for that, and that's the job program for the students and the job training. And otherwise, we're not sure, just for one other example, the Summer Youth Employment Program, we're still not sure if that's going to take off or not, for this summer. So a lot of things are just late notice.
The other big change this year that we are seeing in revenue, on the revenue side, is the replacement taxes. Replacement taxes are paid by businesses on their net income when they do their tax return every year. And so the state government tells us to estimate a certain amount every year, and that's what we budget. So in August, they told us to expect a 17% decrease in revenue. But at this point, we've actually received more than we had last year to this point. So we increased the expected revenue in that line by 2.1 million. And actually, it might be more than that. So I mean, we haven't got the last payments. We don't know the actual amount, but it has. I mean, clearly, net income of businesses have been better this year than we were expecting last summer. So those are the big ticket items that have changed. And like I said, there were lots of other changes with overtime. Was not as much because we were on remote learning. Subs was less. I budgeted originally a large amount for subs because I thought we were going to do an AB schedule, so I budgeted more for subs than we had spent normally. But since we were remote, so long, we didn't. We decreased that budget, and so things like that have changed. A lot of supply budgets are a little less than last year, and certainly travel is way less than it was, and so I cut that in the original budget, but I cut it even more in this budget. So, all right, so here's the big news. Yeah, there you go. So this is the what we always kind of talk about as the operating part of the budget. So it's the education fund, the operations and maintenance, transportation, and IMRF, Social Security. So this is most of our employees, most of our activities are in this section of the budget. And in the original budget, we were estimating that our expenses were going to be over our revenues by, I don't have it in front of me, by like $2 million. And so based on all these changes, if you look on the right column, the total operating funds, down near the bottom, but like the fourth number up, our revenue, I don't have my laser pointer today either, and I wasn't planned ahead, so thank you. Our revenue is now expected to be over our expenses by $2.5 million. So through careful, a little bit of luck with revenues coming in higher than we were expecting, but then also controlling expenses. We're expecting to have a positive revenue over expenditures number at the end of this, when all is said and done with this year's results. So that's a really good sign. And then the bottom line is our expected fund balances, which if you look at the education fund, it's now, we're now expecting it to be about $15 million. In a perfect world, we would like that to be more like $25 million, but it's still, I think, probably the highest fund balance that I've seen this district have in the 12 years I've been here. So very, very positive financial results we're expecting. So you want to flip to the next one? The next one is the non-operating funds, debt service, capital projects, working cash, tort, and life safety. These funds have very specific things you can spend the money on, so that's why we consider them non-operating. They have less to do with our day-to-day function as a school district. Because like debt service has a fund balance of $12 million, but all of that money has to be spent on bonds. It's just a timing thing that on June 30th we've got property taxes, and so you have fund balance that we're going to pay out over the next 6 months. So, and so then the other things are the amounts that we've been using. Capital projects is where we get mostly the county school facility sales tax in, which that's another part of the revenue side that we've had better results than we expected because sales tax has held solid this year. So anyway, so that's the non-operating side. I think that might be our last slide. All right. So that's really all we came prepared with. We like to keep these things short. If you guys have any questions at any time tonight or after tonight, just let me know. But the budget will be on. I'll put it on the website tomorrow. It'll be on the finance tab of the website, and it'll also be at the front desk, starting tomorrow.
Well, thank you, and Mr. Walden has a question.
Yeah, you may also have some good news. The Illinois Association of School Board did a legislative update, and they're in bargaining right now to put together, but the revenue from the state has come up, and so it looks like the governor, Pritzker, is trying to put the $350 million back into evidence-based that you didn't have and he didn't have actually until this week. But they're looking at now trying to do that. So you may actually be getting some more money on the evidence-based that up until a week ago, I don't think we knew was even a possibility. But the same thing, there were state revenues that came in higher than they thought, so they're trying to juggle that. So this is really good news, and I appreciate the work you guys have done. So.
Yeah, we had the same amount of evidence-based funding this year as last year, so it was actually very good of the state to do that, which helped our budget. But if they can do that, that means you'll probably get about $2.5 million extra next year in addition if they do the $350 million. Assuming we say it's tier 1 school based on enrollment. So.
Other questions, comments? Thank you. Next, we have the legacy update. We have Becca Mathis from the Holt Center and Derek Kilmer from the Central Illinois Friends.
Good evening, folks. My name is Becca Mathis. I'm the Adolescent Health Coordinator at the Holt Center for Healthy Living, and I'm co-chair of the Legacy Curriculum Advisory Committee. And where'd he go?
And my name is Derek Kimmler, and I'm the Executive Director and Co-Chair, or Executive Director of Central Illinois Friends, and the Co-Chair of the Legacy Committee as well.
So we're here this evening to give you some updates as to the advisory committee and the work we've been doing, and also give you some idea of the next steps moving forward over the course of the summer, as well as the start of fall 21 school year. So just to bring everybody up to speed, make sure we're all on the same page, this Legacy Curriculum Advisory Committee was convened to assist the district in finding an efficient process to address the Illinois House Bill 246. This mandate specifically adds the compliance of making sure that the roles and contributions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people are included in history instruction, which would include social studies as well, and any learning standards relevant to that topic, not only in our country, but as well as our state. So this was an existing bill, and they added on this particular community to be included in instruction. We did want to make sure, though, to provide some background as to kind of why that bill was amended, and not just dive right in, just to make sure we are looking at this from the right perspective. There is a large benefit to be gained by creating more inclusive curriculum, and one way to do that is by making history instruction more inclusive and beneficial for all students. There's a lot of very specific data that goes to show that students a part of this particular community experience very significant health disparities in all ranges related to health, not just social emotional health, but as well as physical health, and some of which you can see outlined on that screen. This data is primarily pulled from youth risk behavior surveys, but also from the Centers for Disease Control Division of Adolescent School Health, if you're interested in looking into that more. But really the goal of implementing more inclusive curriculum is to make sure that students feel that they are learning in a very safe environment, and that they also feel like they're connected and a part of their schools. I can kind of speak from being a community outreach educator within this school district that many of the buildings that I walk into, I can feel the very welcoming environments that your staff create, not only in the schools, but also in the building here at the administrative level. And so I would like to very much commend all of the staff for being able to create that culture. And this is just another way to kind of put that on the books and make sure that it's something that we can sustain moving forward for students. Yeah.
And I'd just like to add, first and foremost, is before we go into the whole committee side of things, it'd be easy for us to, as a committee, come up and say, well, this is a mandate, we need to do this. But that wasn't enough for us. We really wanted to dive into why this is important. And so we did our due diligence. As you'll remember, we talked to you in the fall of last year, and rightfully so, many people raised concerns. And I really appreciated that, because I think that made this entire curriculum so much stronger and better, and what we've done in the last school year. And so before we get started, I'd be miffed if I wasn't able to say that, I'm standing here and Becca's standing here in front of you right now, and we're not alone. We're standing on the shoulders of many, many LGBTQ people in our history that didn't just pave the way for LGBTQ individuals, but all of us here. We stand on the shoulders of Baird Rustin and James Baldwin and Marsha P. Johnson. We stand on the shoulders of George Washington Carver, Frederick von Steuben, and many more. And these are all LGBTQ individuals who, some of them publicly out, some of them not, that made it possible for every single person, gay, straight, cis, trans. And it's important to let these children that are having identity crises, sitting in class who can't focus on their curriculum, to understand that there are people that are just like them that made a ginormous difference in their lives. And those other shoulders we stand on right now in front of you today are all those that couldn't take it anymore. Those numbers and those statistics are real life people who either made it through the process or didn't. And we get to have the opportunity to advocate on their behalf by providing this curriculum. So I just wanted to add that.
So the approach that was taken by this particular advisory committee was not only to address the fact that a curriculum and resources needed to be selected in order to effectively address the mandate, but also assisting staff in understanding a lot of what Derek just said, is that the rollout of inclusion of this particular community has a very significant impact on students, and we wanted to make sure that not only the staff who were implementing or integrating this resource into their curriculum felt prepared to navigate said conversations, but staff at every level would be given the opportunity to find ways to support students when relevant. So we took the approach of professional development supplemented by community agencies as well as volunteers from our advisory committee, as well as the project implementation of the actual curriculum. Another element here, and I guess it didn't pop up with the other ones, is community engagement and outreach, recognizing that there's a lot of external factors that go into people's or individuals' understanding of the purpose of this project. So over the course of these next few slides, we're going to give you some updates as to the Safe Zone training or the professional development that's been provided, the status of the curriculum and its implementation, and then some opportunities that we have identified as a committee or as a result of some feedback of participants from these training programs.
Yeah. So during the professional, so just to give you an idea, we are a full committee that have been working on this that has been broken down into 3 separate committees or subcommittees, and this is one of them. And it's the professional development. And what was key for us is to not just provide the education on the curriculum, but an actual full-based education of Safe Zone training, which provides conversations on definitions and the entire LGBTQ plus Safe Zone strategy for the entire school. So what we did with Dr. Wilson and many other individuals at the district level is to be able to train the district staff, many of your board members here, principals, assistant principals, counselors, union employees, what else was there? There's did I say social workers? And just to start off with the Safe Zone training throughout this spring semester, we also were providing this training for those who will be teaching a lot of this curriculum. Now, the great thing about this is in the future forward, we're going to be offering this Safe Zone training throughout the entire summer so people can opt in. So if you're a district staff member, or maybe we didn't get you in during the spring as a board member or a principal, maybe we missed you because of COVID or whatnot, we'll have more opportunities this summer and in this fall to provide this training. And these were trainings that we were able to bring very highly professional individuals from Eureka College to, we have Becca Mathis and myself and Center for Prevention of Abuse and agencies right here in Peoria that were able to provide that kind of education.
So if we have the opportunity, I did want to be kind of give you some background on the Legacy Project and the inclusive curriculum itself. There's a short video that can be found on the legacyproject.org that gives a really good overview of where the project comes from. This is actually a group that's based out of Chicago, so we really wanted to make sure that there was full understanding that this wasn't a curriculum that the advisory group threw together or that we developed on our own. This is an existing resource that was developed by professionals across the field. There's historians, certified teachers that participated in the development of the curriculum. But we did want to share this quick video with you to give you some perspective or some background on the Legacy Project itself. So if you're not awake now, then hopefully that means you did. But just wanted to give you some perspective as to the Legacy Project and the scope of the work that they do. And this was a pre-existing group that already had been working in trying to acknowledge the roles and contributions of the community in history. And when Illinois as a state decided to include that as a mandate related to curricular instruction, this group said, what a wonderful opportunity, we've already been doing this. So with connections that Derek actually already had, we found this as to be the most comprehensive as well as the most efficient way to integrate this curriculum as a resource for our staff in Peoria Public Schools.
Yeah, a few things, and that is, one, this curriculum is always being updated, so that's the nice thing. It's kind of, as we learn more, we get to add to it. And I'm sure you all are faster readers than I am, so I'm sure you were able to read all that. But the other nice thing is when we're learning about one of these individuals, it breaks it down to pre-K all the way up to 12 and everything in between. There was some concern about when we were talking about using as curriculum about possibly, and this is coming from some of the staff members, about possibly maybe outing people that didn't want to be outed. But all of this information is given to by and approved by the families of those that these individuals were a part of. So everything is vetted and goes through a process, and it's created by educators for educators and open for the entire public to use.
So that is a major point. That was also a wonderful selling point as a committee. We decided since there's not a cost associated with any sort of use of this particular resource, with the value and volunteer time of the community agencies, we found that this would be a very easy resource to assist our staff in Peoria Public Schools in understanding and learning how to integrate this into their regular lesson plans. So the goal of the trainings that will be provided related to the legacy curriculum and the resources available are to really equip school administration as well as the actual teachers who will be integrating these lesson plans into their existing curriculum, helping them understand how to use this tool to its largest extent. So right now, these trainings are actually in process. Myself, Derek, and some other volunteers from our committee are meeting one-on-one with building administrators. Yes, that is every single building administrator, to make sure that they have an understanding of the expectations of this particular process and the resource that's going to be made available to their staff, but then also address any concerns or particular avenues of opportunity that they may see within their building for additional support following this particular training. So this training that we're in process right now is scheduled to be complete before the end of this contracted school year. with about 30 minutes of kind of live skills-based walkthrough of how to navigate that resource, how to filter based upon your needs of your students' learning level. And as Derek alluded to, and you caught very briefly in that video synopsis, that this framework or the theoretical foundations of the legacy curriculum are actually that same framework that the Black 360 curriculum is built on, that multicultural framework. So there's different levels depending on the age of your learners as well as the learning level of those learners. So next steps following the actual training with every single building and the relevant school staff that will be required to include this lesson plan or this curriculum, into their instruction. We're going to do an evaluation of participant survey to be able to identify any further needs related to support, whether it's comfortability or more hands-on training to feel more comfortable with this tool. And then we're looking to have full implementation of this inclusive curriculum K through 12 starting fall 2021. So any additional opportunities outside of safe zone training that would need to be paired with the professional development work group would be included related to the curriculum side of things. So for example, one particular request I've received from a school principal as of late was that they felt that they have some staff that are going to be totally great with terms and some staff that may struggle in how to use the language if they're incorporating this into the curriculum. And so that particular school would have the opportunity for professional development just for their school, tailored to their school, to make sure that they felt like they were ready and prepared to implement this come fall 2021.
Okay.
You can just look up and see some of the agencies that we're working with, which is what has been very helpful to keep this cost low, because I'm going to echo that cost again. It was $0, just in case you didn't hear.
Lots and lots of support from various community agencies. And so the last note that we'll kind of end on is then some recommendations from the advisory committee, starting with some participant feedback, so staff feedback, as well as some findings that we've identified as a committee. There has been an identified need for ongoing support requested by staff related to how to maintain inclusion or inclusive environments as a district priority. There were some concerns at the onset of some safe zone trainings that, though this is the big picture right now, they really wanted to know that this would be supported moving forward. In addition to that, visible support from leadership, so knowing that if they're standing up and advocating for this in their buildings, wanting to know that they have that support district-wide. Some additional training or professional development has been requested, not just within the safe zone trainings, but as I just mentioned, in some one-on-ones working with principals and actually integrating that curriculum with their staff. A need for an identified clear process of communication, or essentially, who do I go to if this happens or this question arises? We had the opportunity with safe zone training with several staff, from building administrators to counselors to social workers to special education staff, all really brainstorming and workshopping particular issues, but nobody was aware that these issues had happened in these different buildings, and nobody was aware that they had faced very similar instances but didn't have some common ground or resource or place to go. So the last one would be a need has been identified for a clear process or a procedure of how to report incidents in a way that individuals can remain confidential, but an opportunity is provided to, especially building administrators, to propose potential solutions to issues.
Yep. And the last few opportunities that we would like to recommend is having a clear stance from the district on the commitment to being an inclusive school. And this is only going to help Peoria Public Schools. And why I say that is I have the unique privilege to get a phone call when a new LGBTQ family comes to town. And Peoria Public Schools is already considered a safe place for a lot of LGBTQ families that is an option outside of Chicago. There's not very many options for LGBTQ families to feel safe outside of Chicago, and we've developed a place here in Peoria. For those of you who don't know, Illinois has some of the most progressive safety measures for LGBTQ individuals in the entire United States. You're going to see more LGBTQ families, I feel, moving to Illinois. And we've already seen it, and there's going to be a need and an option for a location outside of Chicago for those that maybe Chicago isn't their destination. So I really believe it would be very helpful not only to those LGBTQ members that already go through the school system, but those who are looking for a new home. And then, of course, the evolution of curriculum advisory. As a committee, we believe that the teachers, the educators, and the district staff need to have some support. And they need some support in terms of making sure that they understand what is expected of them. Obviously, we're going to be giving them the curriculum and it's going to be updated, but it would be nice for them, as they've noted multiple times to both Becca and I during the trainings, that they don't want this to fall by the wayside. It's nice to be able to say well, they're doing it, but if you're not really doing it, but you just say you're doing it. So having an ability to make sure that each school will actually follow through on the curriculum itself.
Questions do you have for us, folks?
Well, first, I believe I mispronounced your name when I introduced you. It's Kimler, right? I have a typo on my agenda, so I apologize for that.
Thank you.
Questions? Thank you for the report as well. And board members, if you have questions or comments. No questions or comments? We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, folks.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. Next, we have all things curriculum. Dr. Pratt?
Yep. So thank you. I will actually tee it up, but before I do, I have to recognize Becca and Derek. I mean, these are young people in leadership positions doing amazing work for our state and our community and our school district. They're invested in Peoria Public Schools and board. Not a penny. Not a penny. You will hear, and Dr. Rankin has been asking regarding the cost of curriculum. Curriculum expenses are exceptionally high. Just with our new ESSA funds, I think we set aside, we set aside 7 to 8 million just for curriculum updates. So this work, I mean, you guys were so amazing. It just highlights how fortunate Peoria Public Schools is, and I would say that's one of our strengths as a school district in terms of our collaboration with our entire community. And I can make a phone call and say, hey, we are in need of help. You guys are the experts. We're not. Can you work collaboratively with us? And that's what you did with the teachers, with administration, and you just took this, and it exceeded my expectations. So I wanted to thank you, Derek, for sure, because you're like, hey, don't worry. I'm working with this group from Chicago, this legacy group from Chicago. You just placed my mind at ease. Because I was just thinking, wow, this is another project. We have to start from scratch. It's going to cost us millions of dollars. You're like, don't worry, Dr. Karat, right? And then Beck, of course, she seems to be one of our staff members, but she actually works for another organization, Holt. But her job is to work with Peoria Public Schools. These are exceptional young people. And I love to see the young people in leadership positions doing great work. Just wanted to say again, thank you so much. And all of the recommendations regarding anti-discriminatory language, Vice President Shaw, Wilson, we'll verify our policy, that's policy work, and Mr. Claus, also co-chair of that policy meeting, and Dr. Ike will double check that. The curriculum advisory, those definitely will be done. So again, thank you for the wonderful work that you've led with all of the stakeholders, and also wanting to thank the community agencies that were involved as well. It's excellent work, impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you, President Shaw. I'm going to tee it up for the curriculum team. They will be presenting to you shortly, and it's entitled All Things Curriculum. And just quickly, curriculum, actually it's our bread and butter. It is the central guide for all educators as to what is essential for teaching and learning so that every student has access to rigorous academic experiences. Over the last 6 years, I have seen how we have continued to update and expand, making our classrooms better places for students, for our teachers, through our world-class products and our job-embedded supports and professional development. I'm really, really proud around the progress that we're making as a district regarding the curriculum work. And it's a journey, right? You've never really arrived. When you think, you're done, then it's time to adopt, a new curriculum. And sometimes if you don't have the money like us, we've waited sometimes 10, 15, now 20 years because we just didn't have the funds. And so we're fortunate to use some of those federal funds to really get us back up to speed. So the curriculum is the information you're going to hear today from this amazing team, Dr. Wilson, Ms. Gifford, Mrs. Donath. It is really tied to our new strategic plan. I mean, it's really kind of beautiful, just like we heard about the Legacy Project. The stars are aligning and things are, right? Putting things in place and connecting the dots. And so just some highlights from our strategic plan that you probably will pick up from the presentation today. You'll hear things about customized learning. You'll hear about an assessment system based on skills and competencies, which I'm really excited about. You'll even hear about standard-based alignment, which is a huge part of the strategic plan as well. Student voice, personalized learning, we have to be proficient at that, get better at that. And you'll hear about that as well. This is strategy 1 for our new strategic plan. And you'll hear about virtual options and innovative ways of doing things and so much more. So I just wanted to tee it up. I'm really proud of the work you guys have. Again, you've been just so amazing and so talented. And, just working together for a long time, it sometimes makes things a lot easier as well. So thank you, and I will turn it over to Dr. Wilson, who's Director of Teaching and Learning and everything curriculum, instruction, assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karat. President Shaw and Board of Education, appreciate the opportunity to share our love of curriculum. We could talk all night, but we won't, I promise. There's an end to our slides. But as a team, we really came up with this graphic. We talked about what is it we do? What is the work that we have in front of us? And really, it's about working collaboratively with all of the stakeholders. And so it's everyone, all the way from administrators, at the district level, building staff, and so on and so forth. And really, our work is into 3 categories. We look at curriculum instruction and all things considered there. We also are very invested and involved in professional development that's interwoven into everything we do, and certainly the instructional delivery system. So how does this curriculum that teachers are trained to provide, how does that impact our students in the classroom? And of course, the foundation of all of that work is based on data-driven decision-making. And there's a lot of data points that we look at, and we look at them for a variety of purposes and platforms, but all of that really encompasses our work. So I'm going to step aside and let the workers really talk about what they have been doing and talking about how we support teaching and learning in Peoria Public Schools. So as Dr. Crott introduced, Lisa Gifford is our Literacy Social Studies Coordinator, Tracy Donath is our Math Science Coordinator, and Barb Clausen is out of the district this evening, but you already heard a nice long presentation from her about virtual. So tonight, I'll turn it over to Lisa and Tracy.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Gifford. So we're going to start talking about how do we design the curriculum. When we set out to design the curriculum, we take a look at what teachers do we need on the committee and how do we need to design the committee around the work that needs to be done. We work from a backwards planning standpoint. What assessments are we using? And then how are we going to continue to build towards the assessment as far as current material needs? we create a framework, we develop standards, we use standards that are aligned to what we are mandated to use by the state, and then we identify and pilot all of the select pieces that go into it. So sometimes this process is elongated and takes maybe longer than we even would like it to be, but we want to make sure that it's sound and it's formatted correctly. And sometimes the process is quick and smooth if some of those above bullet points have already been in process. And so it ebbs and flows depending on what the curriculum work is. This is an image of the balanced literacy placemat. So in 2018, right, I think, July 2018, when I stepped into this position, I was tasked with creating that holistic view of balanced literacy across a K-12 continuum. Before we could really address where our curriculum needs were at, we had to kind of ground the district as to what Peoria Public Schools was doing moving forward, as far as addressing the context of balanced literacy and then how it evolved into the literacy structure. So you see those three main tenets of reading, speaking and listening and writing, which is really the meat and potatoes of teaching literacy. No standards are really here on this except for the I can pieces of what students will be able to do upon completion of their 13 years of schooling within Peoria Public Schools. All of that rests on that large red rectangle on the bottom, which are our reading foundational skills, and that's our pre-K through second grade structure. So those critical needs that are addressed as our early learners come in, begin their learning structure, and then bridge into that ready to learn to read in third grade. From that, we built into the K-8 literacy frameworks. So this is a multifaceted document broken apart by grade band. So you have a K2 document, you have a K1 document, you have a 2-4 document, and then you have a 5-8 document. Within it, there are common threads, and some of those common threads are portrayed up there for you. All of them start with the same image, which is the middle one, the smallest piece, being that our practice is culturally responsive in its teaching. So even before we were mandated by the state to pull in cultural diversity and inclusion, Peoria Public Schools was firm in the foundation that everything that we were going to be doing was going to be responsive to the needs of the learners in front of us. From that platform, we moved outwards to address how Peoria Public Schools was going to actually tackle balanced literacy. Because if you Google it, there are about 5,000 different ways that you can approach balanced literacy. So we wanted our structure to be firm and firm again to the needs of our students, making sure that we were working from that balanced literacy placemat with reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills all the way across. So you see on the left-hand side where there are the multicolored rectangles, that is how we focus between our small group and our whole group studies, and with the teaching and learning instruction in the classroom. Similar structure, K-8, just the diversity changes as we move across the grade bands. And then the right-hand side, the larger image, is how our environments are going to be set up. Because if we're actually going to be rooted in culturally responsive practices, then our environments need to be conducive for learning as well. And that's where some of our early work in 2018 started, to ensure that there was equity within our materials and our resources across all of our buildings. After that, within all of these documents, you'll see every document starts with the same left-hand side image that again breaks apart that whole group to small group learning, and then the minutes associated to it, so that teachers can kind of wrap their heads around, how do I engage with this within my 45-minute period, my 80-minute period, 120 minutes, and all those time designations that are mandated throughout the day. As you move across the top of that first rectangle where you see whole group and small group and the time minutes, you'll see those tenets within balanced literacy. So again, working from that original placemat setting, where are we taking it? And then that last column there shows the resources that we have. So that's where our adoption places when we adopted Journeys a few years ago and different pieces like that, move into the framework to help show teachers, veteran teachers or new teachers, where it is that they use these tools. And every classroom is then outfitted with the same resources and the same materials to again ensure that we're rooted in a culture responsive practice. The left-hand document is the same throughout everyone's documents, not to repeat myself here, K-8. But it shows then the standard base alignment. And so you have there that image where you see 1, 2, 3, 4 colored in. We have the standard alignment from Common Core standards focused in that white rectangle. The quarter in which it is taught to ensure proficiency or mastery is what's highlighted in green. And then to the left-hand side, this is where we first approach diversifying the needs across differentiated instruction. So you'll see there, in order for a student to be proficient at the standard that is listed, they need to already come into the grade level having learned all of the skills that are written in black font. The skills that are identified in red font is the specific skill set that that standard will be teaching during that quarter. So that really helps kind of isolate for a teacher how they need to differentiate their instruction across that small group and whole group banding. And then this is here as well so that we don't want to leave out our K-12 fine arts friends. Fine arts also at the same time that this framework was developed for literacy, which splinters into the social studies realm. We also picked up and scooped up K-12 fine arts and aligned all of their standards to the national standards as well. So they have a very similar structure.
Hello, I'm Tracy Doneth, and I am excited to share with you some of the great work that we've been doing in curriculum as well. In response to adjustments to in-person, hybrid, distance learning, we've done it all this year. And in order to support our teachers with that, Lisa and I created documents just like an example of what you see here to support our teachers with that instruction. This is an example of one page of a condensed standards document where we identified through the Illinois State Board of Education recommendations for the condensed standards for this school year which standards our teachers should focus on this year. We had limited amount of classroom time. How are our teachers going to support our students when they don't see them as many minutes in a day as they had in previous years? So we worked tirelessly to get this resource out to our teachers, and it aligns. The standard is highlighted in yellow, so that's the standard for that particular grade level. This happens to be a 6th grade math example. And then on the far left, you see which curriculum resource that the teachers can use. In this case, it was Eureka Math. And it had embedded links that takes teachers directly to a place that we have called CAPS that I'll be showing you later, where they can find the resource. So they literally just open this document, click on that link, it takes them right to the resource that the teacher needed to teach those lessons. Then we wanted to support our teachers with indirect and direct teaching. We knew that our teachers were going to be teaching some of the time with students in front of them, whether it be on a screen or actually in person in the classroom. And we were also going to have times where students weren't with the teacher, but were still expected to do learning activities. And so we wanted to support our teachers that way. So the second column, you'll see direct teaching, and those were examples of a math lesson that teachers were recommended to do when they had students in front of them. The classwork, the exercise, the closing, and there was a link to some student pages. Then on the far right, here were some recommendations that these teachers could have students do outside of the time with the teacher. Maybe the teacher's working with a small group, but this child isn't with the teacher at that moment. What is that student doing? Well, they could be doing the problem set, the exit tickets. There's a link to some Khan Academy videos and digital lesson resources, as well as some IXL lessons that support that standard. So everything that the teacher needs to support direct instruction, indirect instruction, to focus on those standards that needed to be covered this year were embedded within these documents, as well as some additional activities. One of the things that I really thought was critical to the success of teaching our students this year were the bottom 2 sections where you see the reteach, remediation, and the vertical articulation. It doesn't look like much on this page, but it actually represents a lot, because if we have students who we're trying to teach that standard to, and they're not successful at it, what does the teacher do? Well, it takes them directly to the grade standard from the grade before, where some prerequisite skills were taught. Maybe that's where the hang up is. If the student isn't successful on the grade level standard, it takes the teacher directly to a place in our resource that's called CAPS, where they can get the resources to teach from the lesson from the grade before that will support the learner in the lesson that they're trying to teach. As well as a student might need accelerating. Maybe they've been really successful and they need a chance to do more. So it takes them to the place where the grade ahead has the extension of that standard. And I know that Lisa and I worked really hard to make sure we could identify those standards for our teachers so that everything they needed was right here in this document. This is an example of a curriculum map. We talked a lot about aligning our resources to the teaching and work that needs to be done. And what I showed you was a K-8 example. But our high school teachers are also really involved right now in doing some curriculum mapping work. This is an example of a mathematical investigations course curriculum map, but we are doing this work across multiple high school courses currently. And what this is representing is that we are meeting with our teachers in math, science, ELA, social studies, and we're working with teacher committees to identify the Common Core or Next Generation Science standards that should be taught in that class. We know our Peoria public students the best. We want to make sure our curriculum aligns with their needs and what needs to be covered in that class for them to be successful. So we're meeting with teacher committees, and you can see that far left column where it says Common Core Standards. You start to see a list there, and it goes on for many pages, but this is the first page. Just to show the teachers identified these are the standards that this course will be covering. And we're doing that across multiple high school courses so that at the end we can find if there are any holes that need to be filled. Maybe we thought a standard was being covered in one course, but now it's not. We can solve that problem because we're doing the mapping work. Then once the school year starts again in the fall, we're going to be piloting some textbook resources and some online resources to support our learners. That goes along with what Dr. Karat was mentioning with the curriculum funds. We're going to be piloting some resources and looking for some new textbooks in the high school realm. We're going to be identifying where we find those things in the core instruction and identifying online extensions in that third column and any community resources that we might have in Peoria that supports those standards of learning. For example, if this was a science curriculum map and maybe it was on anatomy and physiology, there might be some resources we have at the local hospitals that might support that standard of understanding. And then in the far right column, you'll see the remediation. So again, if we have students that aren't successful, what do we do? There's a place there for that. And farther down on the page, it's not represented here, you'll see there's assessment links as well for the teachers. So this is the work we're doing. It's a lot of work. The teachers are directly involved in the work so that we can make sure our high school courses are aligned across the district. This represents a lot of the work that we've been doing, Lisa and I, across K-8. Way back, starting in 2017, she has been working a lot with the literacy design, so I'm going to let her share about that, and then I'll talk to you about math and science.
Right. So in 2017, that's when the balanced literacy concept and fruition came back to Peoria Public Schools. It had been out there lingering for a while. Then we went in a different direction and we anchored that back down. We piloted and purchased grades 4 or 5 in Journeys, and then we moved across to the following year. Did the same thing with the pilot and purchase for K3 Journeys, putting our K5 into one set system because we already had in place a 612 system connected with the same vendor. And all of that work then dovetails directly into those literacy framework documents that I spoke of on those precursor slides before this. Go ahead. Moving down.
So in the area of science, back in 2017, 2018, our middle school science teachers were able to use a new adoption called TCI. And that is an experience-based science program that they piloted and then purchased that year. And then you can see in 2018, 19, 19, 20, the resource was trained, the teachers were trained on that resource, and then we are continuing to monitor and support the resource in our science classrooms. Go ahead with social.
So social studies, again, started with the same concept design because it too launches off of that literacy design. Social studies teachers teach certain content connected to a social studies skill, but also it's very relevant to literacy skills with reading, writing, and speaking. They have other documents outside of what was shown to you for the literacy ones that capture really those social studies, geography skills, map skills, things to that extent. that was started in the 2018 school year. Those frameworks were then implemented, training was involved, all that sort of work. Last school year and into this school year, we were interrupted a little bit by COVID. We're working to ensure that we can purchase a new resource for social studies since we are slightly outdated and have had some mandate changes come into the mix, and then that work will continue on into the following school year and beyond to ensure that there's continual monitoring, updating, and training. Additionally, the same work and scope was taken for fine arts, and you can see that pasted across the bottom, that they too are getting the same updated frameworks developed with continuing monitoring and training to make sure that they're really our bridge cross-curricularly across all of our core four, really math, science, social studies, and literacy, to ensure that our students are having a truly diverse experience in our classrooms.
The gap that you see there, we have 3 empty spots, and those represent math, because math didn't change at all for those 3 years. But we are working really hard on getting a great curriculum adoption program done for math in grades 5 through 8, which I'll be talking with you about very soon. And we are also looking at Algebra 1 and how we can support our students to success for Algebra 1. And this year we've been working on implementing a plan for middle school Algebra 1 access to all students who are able to work on Algebra 1 content at the middle school level. And then looking into the future, we're going to be working on a middle school resource implementation, as well as a grades K through 4 curriculum review for instructional resources in math. I'll just keep going as it goes to high school. So for science, we have not had a lot of changes leading up to this year, but boy, we've hit it hard this year with biology, chemistry, physics, physical science, anatomy and physiology, and horticulture all getting curriculum map work done currently. So we are doing that work right now, and we look forward to continuing to monitor and train our teachers on the curriculum map resource and do the pilot work that we talked about with textbooks into the future. For math, back in 2018, we adopted a math literacy class, which is connected with some students getting credit through ICC to allow them to jump into a credit-bearing math course as soon as they enter ICC instead of having to take a prerequisite skills in math course. And then currently we're working on Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Math Investigations, and Statistics. In the future, we'll be doing curriculum map work for pre-calc, calculus, computer science, and again, continuing to monitor and train once we purchase resources for those courses as well.
So then moving down into the humanities, you have social studies has taken many marked transitions as far as high school coursework has gone. As far as mapping it concurrently in order to include all of the changes, we're really looking at that starting this year when we look at the BH365 new adoption, and then also taking a look at world history, American history, and government. So all of those key players in our history content area needed an update and a revision. That's happening currently, and then will be continued to monitor in order to ensure that we are again compliant with what's happening from the state standpoint, but then also to ensure that those resources are continually updated. It's really hard to teach true history with outdated materials, especially when it comes to geography. And so that's that bracket. Right below it, we have the English curriculum, where we've had a lot of conversations in previous years about design needs and changes, but since we were locked with a 612 resource, the collections resource that dovetailed, that's why we only adopted K5 with Journeys a few years back. We didn't have a lot of room in order to really adjust that curriculum design until last year, interrupted by COVID, and now this year going forward. So we're working also in 2021 and beyond to really extend beyond just the traditional English 1 through 4 viewpoint that a student would have in high school, and providing them more opportunities for electives. So that's where you see that senior elective, and that's an ongoing conversation with department chairs right now. Likewise, we have all of those other pieces at the bottom with the fine arts framework being movement across. Additions for fine arts framework include pre-AP in order to ensure that we can have more students be successful with AP Realm. That too is happening in English too, because we want to look to encourage more of our students to feel as though they are capable and competent to take those courses. And then other additions and changes to computer science, physical health, things like that.
I don't want to leave out our competency-based education work. There are teachers and Dr. Gersnich and that team have been working really hard on competency-based education training. So that started back in 2018 is going to continue on into the future years as we reach beyond just freshman level courses for competency-based education and continue on to our other coursework as well. All right.
Okay, so when we look to supporting our learners, so all of that really captures tier 1. That's our core. So that's the day-to-day, the ins and the outs of what our teachers are doing in the classroom with our students. Supporting our learners beyond that is where we bracket into that MTSS structure, and you see that triangle with the red, the green, and the yellow. And so what we look at from our perspective is district level data. In fact, we just had a meeting today where we're looking and diving into just the monthly viewpoint of where we are at within all of these systems. And that really helps determine then what individual buildings need, what the district needs universally and globally, and then how are these systems actually impacting our students as learners, and are we seeing that then transfer in some other capacity through high stakes testing or just their grade level achievement. So that opens up into personalized learning opportunities, which we made this to help support principals in understanding just the structure that we have. So at the beginning of the school year and in the summer, there was this flood of we need new resources and digital access to things because of COVID. So it kind of turned us a little bit around in a different way, and we ended up with a lot of supports that we needed to then isolate to show our teachers, our principals, ourselves, even at times where we were using these particular products and platforms. So the green bar is our tier 1, where we want all of our students to live and thrive, and that has our regular core pieces involved. So those are tools and resources that our teachers are in and out of on a constant basis, depending on if they're teaching within those core 4 domains or if they're in the fine arts. Moving to that yellow bracket, this is where we support our tier 2 students who need some intervention and extension outside of the core classroom to support their learning. And so they have core 5 and Power Up, which is the lightning bolt. That's part of the Lexia suite that we operate with. And then Dreambox off to the side, which is a math support. That's only off to the side for our understanding, but everyone has it. Then tier 3 supports, if you move up, those are our students who, when they're in tier 1, they still need additional support because they're just stuck or struggling in some way. And so we offer them continued time in these other systems, or we give them a different use of the same system in order to really narrow and pinpoint into their differentiated needs. This entire triangle is elongated if you were to click on that red hyperlink at the top, or Michelle will click now to the next slide, which will show you a little snippet of what that document is. So this is a multi-page document. It takes then each individual icon that you saw across that triangle, and it breaks it down to what is the name of the product that's associated with that icon. These are the same icons that our students and our teachers see on our it's not Novell anymore, our District 150 apps page, as well as if they're using Schooler. So we're using the same imaging across our documents so that teachers are aware as well what they're looking for. It outlines where our digital library features are. We put that in March of last year during the beginning parts of COVID, really to show our teachers that they did have supports already at their fingertips, even if they weren't aware what that resource was. Then we classified whether it was a tier 1, 2, or 3 with that gray bar in the middle. So if it's a tier 1, only the left-hand column is colored in. If it's for tier 1, 2, and 3, you'd see all 3 bars, or a variety of mixtures across gray bars, depending on where we're using this resource. What professional development opportunities are available for teachers, which we'll show you another piece of that in a few minutes. Who's using it, and then how do you access it? So teachers and principals have access to this document in a variety of ways across the district so that they could see what was at their disposal, and then they could also correlate when they saw something come up for professional development labeled IXL or World Book or Lexia. They would then know what that support piece was and how it factored into their day-to-day teaching.
So to build on the tier 1, 2, and 3 resources that you just saw, this is an example of an alignment for one subject. In this case, it's math. So as I look, what are the resources we have just for math? They're identified in this visual, where you can see for tier 1, we have from K-8, Eureka Math is our current math system for instruction for every student. And then we have Big Ideas, which is our high school curriculum. It's in 8 because we have some 8th grade students who do use Big Ideas as part of their Algebra 1 in the 8th grade level. And then IXL is represented here. So that is a digital resource that we use to support students in math instruction, and it is a tier 1 resource. Then you look down and you see, okay, well, what are we doing for our tier 2 and tier 3 supports? We have Waterford for our K2 students. We have Dreambox for our K8 students. And you can see that as we continue for our students who need even more support, we have an intervention called Bridges Math that some of our teachers are using. And we still have Waterford and Dreambox because they are great supports for our students that need the most support in math instruction as well. So this is just a visual that shows the same information you saw in the triangle, but broken down by subject. So with all of these resources we have and all of the mapping that we're doing, how do we implement curriculum? What do we do with it once we purchase it? So the first step is to actually purchase it, and then we need to get it into this district, we need to get it distributed to the right teachers, and we do a lot of training to support our administration, our certified and non-certified staff members. And as teachers are beginning to use it, we're reaching out and finding out, how is it working for you? What extra supports do you need? It's back to that data-driven decision-making where you can see, oh, this isn't going so well. Our teachers need more support in this. Okay, we will design professional development to support that. So without getting that ongoing feedback, we wouldn't be able to do that loop. And then we have a resource called CAPS. It's Content Access for Peoria Public Schools. And there are folders in there that we have some information to support our teachers. This is our way to get files out to our teachers quickly. So we'll show you the subject folders. If you go to the location within CAPS, our Peoria Public Schools teachers can go here to get the resources they need. You can see that there's literacy K-12 folders, there's math K-12 folders. So this is our resource to push out information to our teachers quickly and efficiently that is district supported to make sure they all have a common place to find the data they need to teach their lessons and be successful. And then we also have the COVID-19 folder, which we created this year because we ended up having some files that we needed to make sure our teachers had, but it was specific to our learning this year, like the condensed standards document I shared with you earlier. And so here we have specific subject folders, and within each grade level or high school subject, you can see different folders with resources to support them this year because we had unique needs for our teachers this year. And as far as professional development, we have been working really hard with our teachers to support what they needed to be successful as leaders in their classrooms. We supported the implementation, like I just explained. We developed instructional strategies with all those documents you saw. We're integrating technology tools with all those purchases for tier 1, 2, and 3 that we talked about. And we're adjusting based on that feedback. So this is kind of a great summation of all the information we've shared with you thus far. Our professional development has been not only within the contractual day for individual teachers, with professional learning communities, whole building department and grade level, but also outside the contractual day. Teachers are meeting with us via Teams or here in this building, after school, in the summer, finding ways to support teachers as learners so that they can support their students. We're doing it at all times of the day. I forgot, I had one more. Sorry. One more. This professional development calendar is an example of how we are reaching our teachers and making sure that they have the support that they need. to find the professional development opportunities. The calendar that you see is on our district website, available to our teachers, and they find a class that they're interested in taking or something that inspires that they want to learn more about to become better teachers and learn more about best practices. They click on that link and they can register for different professional development opportunities. So quick and easy way to get it out to our teachers. Then on the left, you'll see we have different links. Those links just take you to different places that we have on our website with links for video recordings of trainings of professional development that we've done. So if they couldn't attend, they can still watch it. There's on-demand district-provided instructional materials training. So these might be trainings from different resources that we've purchased for our teachers, and we want to make sure that they have more support if they need it. There's also seminar opportunities that sometimes companies reach out and tell us, hey, we have this great opportunity for your teachers. We put it here so that they can find it and they can register if they're interested. And then finally, any district training, technology videos, how to use Teams, how to use Microsoft products, how to use all the different things that the teachers have been asked to do this year, we put a place for that as well.
So lastly, we wanted to share some data with you about our professional development. Like I said before, it's woven into everything we do to make sure that our teachers are supported. So you can see that these are the number of participants in PD trainings. We, outside the contractual day, so Tracy just shared all the times that we meet with teachers inside the contractual day, but these are actual participants that have attended PD trainings starting in 2018-19 school year. So you can see the white are outside after school hours, and then the red is in the summer. And so the nice, what this shows us is that we are increasing the number of participants in our PD trainings. And these are duplicated accounts. So some of those numbers might be a teacher that attended 5 different trainings. And then the other piece that we wanted to share is the actual number of PD trainings that we provide for our teachers outside the contractual day. And so you can see also that we have increased the number that we're offering as well as the teachers that are attending. And we're thinking, why is that? And part of it could be that we're doing a lot of virtual trainings now. So teachers don't need to get in their car, drive over here and attend a PLC. They can't get to their child with soccer, so they can just turn on their computer and they can see the PD training wherever they are. So that's really been helpful for us. And we'll continue to offer in-person as well as virtual trainings for them. So with all of that being said, we have greatly appreciated having your attention to a window into our world. Curriculum touches all of our students and all of our teachers in one way or another, and hopefully you can see it's multifaceted. So it's hard to capture all of it, but we tried in a few slides. And so we'll leave you with this quote from Socrates: let the questions be the curriculum. So thank you.
Thank you. Incredible amount of detail went into this. Board members' feedback. Mrs. Ross.
Thank you for this great presentation. I did want to ask that last slide, Dr. Wilson, you said outside the contractual day. I'll start with that one and then go backwards. Does this include this training on SIP days? And when you say outside the contractual day, is it after school?
Mm-hmm. It sure is. So this is the teachers attending outside their day. So SIP days is within the day for them. Mm-hmm. And so these do not count institute days or SIP days. This is after
this
students
is
leave.
We have to pay overtime on this.
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay. On those
it was hard for us to capture the number within contractual day because it's ongoing every day. So that was a trick for us to show those numbers. So we wanted to share these.
And perhaps I'll save the other question I have regarding the math until the point come up about the new math and that kind of thing. But while I'm speaking, I may not get another opportunity. So I just want to recognize and thank Ms. Gifford for all of her hard work. Over the years that I've been working with you, the teachers all have indicated they enjoy your training and working with you. It's the ease of learning from you for some reason is just so much easier. And the students, when you work directly with the students, they have benefited from your ability to work with them, meet them where they are, and care about each student. And also, I have enjoyed over the years your commitment to caring about all students and doing your best for all students. So I'm really sorry to see you go. You will be missed as far as I'm concerned. But I just wanted you to know that over the years, all these years, I've always appreciated your ability to connect with people at the level that they needed to be connected with. Thank you.
Other questions, feedback from board members? Dr. Rankin?
Great work. This is awesome. I really enjoyed this. This is kind of right up my alley. I do have a few questions. So all of the information that was shared was K through 12. How are we supporting our pre-K teachers with the Illinois Early Learning and Development Standards, knowing that those are connected and mapped to the Common Core curriculum? Every time that we hear about curriculum, we never hear about pre-K. And so I guess my question is, where's pre-K?
With that, you'll notice this says All Things Curriculum Part 1. So there's some other parts coming, and one of them is pre-K, but I'll just give you a little glimmer. And Valeska, the Preschool for All grant and the Preschool for Expansion grant, has built into the grant money for coaches and curriculum development. And so they have a whole staff there that is focused just on pre-K. But you'll hear more about that in the coming board meetings.
Yeah, under a lot of support from Illinois State Board of Education. It's actually highly prescribed, but yeah,
Right,
then
yeah.
also ELL.
Right.
You'll
Oh,
hear more.
yes, true.
Yes, so there's
There's
more
some more to
parts.
it. Okay. I just know as a former pre-K teacher, we often were left out of SIP days and planning and curriculum, and so I just want to make sure that I brought that up. My other question, which kind of goes to the math, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the bridges math that was on one of the slides a while ago with the example of the tier 2 or tier 3, I think it was tier 3, who is providing that intervention? Is it the interventionists or is it the classroom teachers?
A little bit of both, I'll be honest. Many of our teachers using that program are supporting our special education needs students, and they are using it as an intervention program for our students. Their classroom teachers are using it, especially at the middle school, high school level.
So knowing that it was voted to take away some of or all of the interventionist positions, the certified teachers, how is that going to be taught at that tier 3 level, knowing that that is the most at-need students?
I don't anticipate a large change with our Bridges math right now because, as I said, classroom teachers are teaching it to our special education needs students. And so they're already going to be teaching it, and those teachers will still be employed by the district in that capacity. So those teachers will still be implementing that curriculum. It's a very small select number of students that are receiving that curriculum.
Okay. And then one of other statement question on the overview of social studies, it talked about the B365. I'm assuming after tonight, hearing about the legacy curriculum, that will also be added, knowing that it's a continually growing process and moving process, and so I'm assuming that will be added to the overall curriculum map and development.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Mr. Waller?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions and a comment. One of the things when we were talking about this over the last couple of years, there seems to have been, not intentional, but an emphasis on Tier 3. I have a concern that we have some students that are gifted students in Tier 1, and I think we've pulled back the support from them. And I think when you talked, and I'm going to say this, I agree with Martha that we have to take care of all of our kids, and we've got some kids at the top that I think need that help, need to be challenged. On some of the individual plans that we have, are we ever going to be to a point where a person who, instead of being labeled, I'm a fifth grade math student, actually is an 8th grade level, and we move them within those levels instead of just keeping them in that little box of where we're at so that those kids can do that?
Yeah, let me take that also. We do have that accelerated policy that was, so, Mr. Walter, we have the D-Square program, kids who want to challenge themselves. We're graduating 15 with with a high school diploma and associate's degree, and they come in and they're tested, and if in fact they're ready for, first grade, second grade. When I was at Whittier, I promoted like 7 kids. They were in kindergarten, but they were reading at like a 4th grade level.
Right.
They all went to first grade. I think we're still very progressive in that sense, but I'll have the young ladies respond as well.
Certainly. Mr. Walter, that is actually part of my responsibilities, is to do the grade acceleration and subject acceleration process for the district. And so, yes, if we have a student who is ready for that level of challenge, there is a process already outlined on our website for families to do that. Teachers recommend them, principals recommend them, parents recommend them, so we can identify students who need that extra level of challenge.
Okay.
And you mentioned during the presentation that extension also, the opportunity to extend. You mentioned remediate or even to extend or accelerate. But,
yes, absolutely.
But Mr. Walter, we could probably do a lot more advertising that piece.
Okay.
Yeah. We do it, but sometimes we don't brag about it, or we don't say it boldly and prominently, probably as we should.
Well, I agree about the advertising. I was talking to some people in the community the other day, and they weren't aware of the D2 thing that we had, that we can actually have a student get through here and have an associate's degree and their degree. And I think that is such a gift that we have to retaining people in Peoria and giving a reason for people to be part of Peoria Public Schools. The last comment I was going to make was I also wanted to thank Mrs. Gifford for being here and what you've done, and you've been a real help the whole time. I've loved a lot of the literacy programs when you've had here, and I think one of my favorite times when you had the number of kids who had read the number of books. And there was this beautiful little girl that came up there, and she was from Taft Homes, and she had read like 1,000 books or something and stuff with that. And I was just so impressed. And it was Dr. Carrot afterwards. She said, "Mr. Walter, she comes from Taft Homes." And I grew up, I went to Greeley grade school, so I was like 8 blocks away. But she was just like a little flower that had just grabbed this thing. And then the Young Authors program that you've had, when we've seen some of these kids of what they've done, it's just been stunning of what we do. And we do really produce a lot of good things here in this district, and we don't take it. But I agree with Mrs. Ross. You're going to be missed, and I really appreciate all the help you've done here, because it looks like they're taking 2.5 people to replace you. So I think we wish you well in your new district. So thank you.
I really appreciate the sentiments that both of you have shared. But moving forward was not an easy decision for me. It's a great opportunity that has been presented to move into the superintendency, but I take with me everything learned from Peoria. So, I mean, Peoria has made me able to take this position, and so I thank all of you, because I wouldn't be doing it without your support going forward.
Other feedback from board members? Okay, thank you. And we have Dr. Carrot, did you want to cue this?
I won't tee that one up. They've already teed it up.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So
Thank you, President.
Yes, the grade 5 through 8 mathematics adoption.
All right. Good evening again, President Shaw, Vice President Wilson, Dr. Carrot, Board of Education members. I know you've listened to a lot of presentations tonight, even from me. So I will do my very best to make this painless and make sure you feel informed to make decisions today. It is my honor to represent the curriculum department and our distinguished Math Adoption Committee of Peoria Public Schools teachers to present this to you today. I'm here to update you on our middle school math adoption progress since I presented to you in December, and to ask for your support in this curriculum resource adoption purchase for our Peoria Public Schools teachers and students. One of the questions I got was, why are we doing this now? What is the purpose for looking at math in middle school moving forward? Well, you saw earlier on that chart, there was no updates done to math for the last few years. And we want to make sure that we are supporting our students moving ahead into the needs that our students will have in math instruction many years to come. So we're looking for supporting our students in Math Algebra 1 readiness. Our current program has been used for many years with no updates like you saw. And our teachers and parents have expressed concerns with meeting their students' needs with the program we have right now. Our current program is Eureka Math, and it is designed to support the learners with the standards, and it is a good program. But it is not differentiated. There is one level of instruction that teachers have as a resource, and if they want to teach to our high-achieving students or our students who need additional support, they have to create that on their own. We're looking for a resource that is supporting our teachers that way, so they have those resources at their fingertips. Our student activities are often very text-heavy. With the current program we have, it causes students to do a lot of reading. So if you're a struggling reader, now you're also a struggling math student, and we want to make sure that our students are able to be successful in math regardless of their reading ability. And there were a lack of resources for at-home support with the current program we had. So some considerations as our committee started to do our work, these are things that we had to find in a resource. Has to be Common Core Standards aligned, had to have differentiated resources. We had to have one that had teacher instructional training and support embedded within the program. We had to find one that had whole and small group instruction, because moving forward, that is our plan for math instruction in the district. You saw literacy, we have whole group, small group, individual instruction to support our literacy learners. Well, the same thing for math. I'm looking forward to developing that with the district. And we needed to find a resource that would support us with Algebra 1 readiness. So here's our timeline. I shared this with you before, but it stopped at December. So basically in October, November, we developed a committee of teachers. This teacher committee was recommended by their principals and represents 20 teachers across the district that teach middle school math. In December, I started meeting with the committee of teachers, and we started reviewing materials from 6 different companies. January, our committee met. We collaborated to narrow the focus down to 2 companies that we felt met the needs of our Peoria Public School students. The 2 that were selected were Into Math, which is an HMH product, and Envision Mathematics, which is a Savvis, which was formerly called Pearson, product to pilot. The pilot was from February technically to April, but I had more information to share on the April one, so I put February to March here. And during that time frame, the committee received training from each of those companies on how to use the resources, and then they piloted those resources in their classrooms. So they stopped using Eureka Math and started using the new resource to teach with the condensed standards document in order to support their learners, and they tried it out to see how does it work with their students. Are they responding to it? Is it supportive of their needs? Then in April, the committee designed a parent survey to get input from the parents on what they felt would be needed to support their learners at home. And the teachers evaluated the pilot programs to share their perspective on how the pilot went. Now in May, I'm here to make a recommendation to you, the board, for the math curriculum adoption for our 2021 school year implementation. This is a list of the teachers who supported this work. Without their help, there is no way I could have done this in the time frame that we had to work with. These teachers represent many schools from across the district, and they were instrumental in not only their opinions, supporting the needs of their students, trying out the resources. They were fearless in their attempts to use these resources with their students. They'd never used them before, but they tried, and they were very successful. So here's a little bit about our review process. It started with Ed Reports. Every curriculum material that was going to be part of this work had to be rated highly in Ed Reports, or we weren't going to consider it. So we started with Ed Reports. It's an instructional material review site that is done by expert educators. So educators telling educators good ways to educate children. The initial materials that were reviewed were these companies. Again, we settled for our pilot for Into Math and Envision Mathematics, but we also looked at Illustrative Math, EdGEMS Math, Reveal Math, Carnegie Learning, and Everyday Math. For the pilot, we had 20 teachers pilot one of those 2 programs, and we had a few brave teachers that piloted both at the same time. We had administrator observations to see the programs being used in the classroom. We had teachers review a mixture of digital and print resources. So some teachers were more comfortable with print. They worked on the print resources with their students. Some teachers were very comfortable implementing digital resources that they had not been able to use before. So those teachers were very excited about jumping into the digital aspect of the pilot, and they used those with their teachers, and some did a mixture of both. They evaluated the programs in meetings and surveys. So here are some of the results of those surveys that I wanted to share with you. At the conclusion of the pilot, the teachers were asked to complete a survey to rate the instructional program that they piloted. So some of the interesting findings are here. As far as easy to use print resources, you can see both products, Envision Mathematics is blue and Into Math is orange. They were pretty evenly matched as far as how easy it was for the print resources to be used with students. But you'll see on the right, when it got to digital resources, Envision Mathematics was much easier for our teachers to use. There were a few different reasons for that. Some of it was rollout, implementation, and rostering, and some of it was finding resources on the site. Then we know in Peoria Public Schools that we are always looking to support our new teachers. We have new teachers come every year. We want to make sure that whatever resource we pick is one that they can use successfully from the beginning of the year. And both of the programs were pretty evenly matched as far as having support for new teachers. In differentiated support for resources, that's the one on the right, you can see Envision Mathematics was rated a little bit higher in having differentiated resources, which again you saw on an earlier slide was really important to our work. So I broke that down a little bit deeper in differentiated resources because I wanted to know more. Differentiation is both challenging our students and remediation work. So in challenging our students, we felt that both resources were pretty close. Envision Math seemed to be rated slightly higher, but not much. But then with remediation, you can see that Envision Math is a stronger program. So we have students who might need remediation work, and Envision Math seem to have more support in that area. This is a total representation of the teachers' ratings on the survey that they completed at the conclusion of the pilot. The total number of excellent ratings received by Into Math was 43. The total number of excellent ratings for Envision Mathematics was 71. These are some of the comments that the teachers made in the survey as they reflected on their pilot process. I'm not going to read them to you. You're able to read them, but I just want to point out a few key points. One, there's a lot of collaborating about math. Students were not necessarily talking about math before, and now there's an avenue to do that. There's a lot of great discussion topics in the resources that they piloted. We have students excited about learning math and teachers excited about teaching math. And then the comment on the right is essentially about it's not the same old thing. It was exciting to them again. And they even brought their book every day. The teacher was surprised that no one lost their book the whole time because they were proud of it and they wanted to take good care of it. So we also developed a parent survey. Now this parent survey was completed by parents of the students who participated in the pilot. So the teachers who were pilot teachers sent this survey to the parents of their students, and the teachers in the committee developed the questions for the survey. They helped do that work. You can see here is a representation. We had 139 parent survey responses that were received, and the survey was available both in English and in Spanish. The parents felt that some resources they really needed to support their students from learning at home or with learning at home was a workbook. You can see 84 out of 139 parents said a workbook to complete in at home is very important, and 41 said important. So you can see parents would like that level of support for learning at home. Also, they rated a parent newsletter higher than I expected. There are some parent newsletters embedded within the program that pre-introduce the topic of study that's coming in math and tells the parents, hey, here's what your students is about to learn, and here are some resources on the website that will support you in advance of the instruction. Also, parents were able to rate how heavily they thought online videos would support their students learning at home. So if you have a student trying to do math at the middle school level, that math can be really challenging. If a parent does not feel like they know how to do the math, that student has no support at home. But the resources that we reviewed had online video support, so the students could click on it, watch the video, and there's a teacher ready to go through the program that can support them as they're trying to do their homework at home. And then online additional practice problems were also rated highly. So I didn't highlight all the parent results, but these were the most significant that aligned with the resource that we are discussing today. So, as far as the committee's recommendation, with all the considerations of the district, teachers, students, parents in mind, we would like to recommend the purchase of Envision Mathematics for our middle school students' math instruction in Peoria Public Schools. Our teachers were able to vote on the one source or the resource that they felt strongly about, and 88% of them voted for Envision Mathematics. So we are going to request that resource be purchased for our students for the 2021-2022 school year and beyond. The three main reasons why we feel this is the most excellent resource to support our students in their math learning is all the differentiation options that Envision Math has, the resources that are embedded, both digital and paper, and the support with videos, presentations, work examples, and what's not on there, professional development for teachers too, are all part of the program. This is an example. Remember earlier I mentioned to you that Ed Reports did the initial work for us by finding resources that were supported by teachers and already vetted. And this is the report for Envision Mathematics through the Ed Reports platform. You can see here for focus and coherence, 14 is the highest score a program can get, and they got 14s across the board. In rigor and mathematical practices, 18 is the highest score a program can get, and Envision Math got 17. In usability, 36 was the score that was achieved here in 5th grade, and 38 in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and 38 is the highest possible score. So if we value the opinion of our Ed Reports presenters and experts, they have rated this program highly, and so have our Peoria Public Schools teachers. I leave you with this quote. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. And that's what we want to do for our students in Peoria Public Schools, is we want to train them how to be mathematical thinkers. And this program, I believe, will do that. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
Questions, comments from board members? Mrs. Rose.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Regarding the, regarding the teachers. On the one slide, you mentioned which schools had representation.
Absolutely.
There were some schools that had one representative, and others had 2 or 3. How were they chosen? For instance, you've got Calvin Coolidge, Roosevelt, and Harrison and Lindbergh that has one representative. How were they chosen?
So the principals recommended teachers on their staff to participate. Some principals recommended more than others. Some principals recommended 2 or 3 teachers, but only one might have wanted to participate because this was outside of their contractual day, completely separate from their regular workday. So in some buildings, only one teacher wanted to participate in the committee. In other buildings, we had multiples.
So, and then that was one question. And then, you said that which teachers piloted? Which
all of those teachers piloted.
All these teachers piloted it?
Yes.
Okay, and so,
half of them piloted the Into Math, half of them piloted the Envision Mathematics.
Okay, but how were parents involved in that? Because I heard you mention a parent survey.
Yes.
And I'm for sure that I never received a survey for
the parents of
school.
the students who were part of the pilot received the survey. So the parents of the students whose student were in the teachers' classes that you saw there, they're the ones that were sent the survey.
Okay, I know that there was one teacher there that I should have gotten a survey from, but I don't remember getting a survey. But and then you mentioned also on one slide 43 and 71 out of how many? I forget which slide it was. This one? Was it this one? No. No, that's not the one. What's the question?
You're talking about the number of excellence rated on the survey?
Right, yeah. One was 43 and the
Sure.
other was 71, and I was wondering out of how many?
The survey...
Out of just 80?
Actually, no. The survey had approximately 20 questions on it. That is the number of times a rating of excellent was given by any teacher regarding that specific subject. So a teacher might have rated excellent multiple times,
Okay.
and that number would be represented there. There were about 20 questions on the survey.
Okay, and the last question I have is, what plan do you have to transition students and teachers from the current math? First of all, I guess it's, you gave the prerequisite to what's wrong with the current math.
Yeah.
Then how will they just transition,
You bet.
already learned, this math? How will they transition? How is it integrated?
That's the work that we do in the curriculum department. We will be doing lots of professional development. I already have dates on the calendar to support this if it's approved. It's for set aside and ready to go so that we can support teachers with professional
What
development.
about students? I'm saying students and parents.
Oh, sure. As we do that work, we're going to be supporting the teachers' needs. We'll be going out and supporting what the students' needs by hearing back feedback. We talked about data-driven decision-making in professional development. So as we hear about students having troubles in some areas, that provides a professional development opportunity. And we're going to be doing professional development for our administrators so that they can go into classrooms and support the teachers and know what's happening in the buildings.
And the newsletters also, you referenced the newsletters that will go out to parents?
Yes, absolutely.
Which we've never had.
It's a really nice resource.
That's a nice addition.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other feedback, Mrs. Costa?
I just have one question in regards to the program and previous. Dr. Crowd, I cannot remember exactly that when we were going into remote learning, and as a board we approved lots of programs, and there wasn't a math program at that time that we approved.
No, we did the Acellus, mostly the online, Acellus, Lexia, but these are resources, supplemental resources. This is the core, that's the base that you'll be approving today.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other feedback from board members?
I did have one other question.
Ms. Ross?
What funds would be paying for this? Because we're talking about almost, well over $500,000.
Our CARES funds, the CARES funds.
CARES funds?
Yes, ma'am, the ESSA. Mhm. That's why we were not able to do it. And that's why the previous administration selected Eureka Math, because there was no textbook, no cost, really just printing. But those federal dollars are allowing us to really get up to speed and update our curriculum, which desperately needed to be updated. Because how old?
I wasn't here when it was originally implemented, but teachers are telling me it's been about 8 years of Eureka Math, and Eureka Math is publicly available curriculum online. But one of the challenges some of our teachers have had this year with that is because it's publicly available, the answers are also publicly available, which meant teachers were having to rewrite questions for assessments because they were all online. So this will supplement that and make sure that we don't have that problem moving forward.
And tons of printing, right? I remember
And
hearing
printing, they had to
lots of
print
printing.
lots of resources. This curriculum adoption has 6 years worth of student workbooks, part of the purchase. So we will have that moving forward for at least 6 years.
Mrs. Costa?
One of the things that usually comes up when we're talking about purchasing different programs is the annual licensure and the cost of that. And looking at this, it looks like there is a cost to license I'm confused if is that
It is 6 years.
Every 6 years, but it's based on the grade levels. Is that correct?
Well, that's the way it's kind of written on the quote, but it is for 5th through 8th grade.
So is that one license or is it 3 licenses?
It is 1 license per grade level.
Okay.
And all of them are represented 5 through 8, but it is a 6-year license so that we have those resources available to us for the next 6 years.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Other feedback? Oh, Dr. Rankin?
This is great. I know that since I started on the board, one of the things that teachers have said, especially middle school teachers, is that there's no math curriculum. We need math textbooks. So I appreciate all of this work. My question is thinking about next year and thinking for two questions. Since K4 is still going to use Eureka Math, is there a curriculum map to show how the work that they do through K4 is connected to, or how it's going to be connected to the work that they're going to do with Envision? So that's one question. And then the other one, is it a task of this curriculum committee to think about Eureka Math for the younger ages, knowing that it is widely available? As a parent, I know I have gone on and looked at the answers so I could teach my son concepts, but knowing that it's online, we have 3rd and 4th graders who could go online and find those answers also. So kind of two-part. Are we going to look at K4 curriculum now that we've started with this Envision? And is there kind of a crosswalk to show how Engaged New York currently is going to fit into the Envision work?
Excellent. So yes and yes. We have already planned out in the previous presentation that I did for our future year's work that math K4 curriculum adoption will be part of next year's work. So our K4 teachers will get to do the same process our middle school teachers did this year. And they might pick Envision Mathematics as the resource that they think fits best for their students. And they might pick a different resource if it meets their students' needs better. So they will get their opportunity next year to do the same work. As it relates to supporting our students next year, yes, our K4 students will still be using Eureka Math for the next school year as teachers pilot additional resources and we do the same process. In supporting that work, we support our teachers with Eureka Math and all the resources that are there. You saw the curriculum alignment documents, all those links embedded. They will still have that available to them to support the work. In fact, we're going to be adjusting the curriculum standards alignment documents to match whatever new resource we pick for our middle school teachers so that they will have links for resources with whatever new purchase we might do.
Other feedback from the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now ready for a presentation by audience. Audience presentations are limited to 5 minutes unless extended by the majority of the board. Audience presentations on any topic are limited to 20 minutes, except at the discretion of the board. And we ask that you keep the comments respectful. Our first speaker is Ms. Diana Bradbury.
Good evening. I'll be real quick. I am a teaching assistant at Thomas Jefferson Primary School, and I love my job. We have a great student body and staff there, and we worked really hard this year to hold the line. And it was a challenging year, but we made it. We're almost there, and we're going to be ready for next year, right? The reason I came here tonight was because I just wanted to voice a concern over moving the primary kids to a later schedule. And mainly because of just what I've seen in the COVID and everything that we had to do in the schools by bringing in the kids later. Our little ones who are 9 and under, they're more attentive in the morning. They get up with the sun or even before, and they're more active in the morning time. So by the time we get them and we get breakfast, put a muffin down, I don't know if you've given a muffin to 25-year-olds and see what can happen. It's, can be an ordeal. You get it going by the time they're learning or ready to engage. It's so late. So I would love to see it because all year just been yearning for that extra hour in the morning that we had prior to this year. So this kind of gave us the idea that what the kids are missing out on and kind of the difference. Now, to get ready for tonight, I pulled a bunch of research, but it overwhelmingly says that adolescents starting in 5th grade through high school serve a better late time, so you probably all are very aware of that. But our little kiddos, they're different, and it's so important, working in the kindergarten classrooms and understanding. This year, I really, on 100 day of school, they had a hard time getting to 100, which normally, I mean, the hallways are all decorated and every kid's singing it, so they are missing out. And we really, I not only want to get them back in the classroom, but to get them for in that morning time if we can. So, I just want to express my concern just because I care and these kids mean the world to me. So if you think about that, have any questions or anything, call us at TJ. We'll be glad to help you. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Sandy Jonjarius. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
You did.
Thank you.
So I'm actually speaking on the same subject. First of all, I don't understand why we can't return to a full 7-hour day. And also why primary schools are not starting until 9:30 in the morning. Research and data consistently show that not only do primary students benefit from an early start time, but that middle and high school students benefit from a later start time. So I don't understand why this district is doing the opposite of what the research says is an effective practice. You say that you want all children to be reading at grade level by 3rd grade, and how do you propose to achieve this goal? 1, we have a shorter school day. 2, we cancel teacher and student support by canceling interventionists. And 3, primary students start the day at 9:30 in the morning instead of an earlier start time. It does not seem like this is a recipe for success. Every primary and early childhood educator knows that young students need to complete as much academic work as possible in the morning. Yet by starting school at 9:30 and then having breakfast, academics are not even able to begin until 10 o'clock in the morning. And not ending the school day until 4 will lead to decreased learning and an increase in behavior issues, because these young students are tired by the early afternoon and they struggle to stay on task. Late buses mean that these 5 and 10-year-old students may not be home from school until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I know one school today, a bus, primary dismisses at 3, the bus at 3:30 was still at school. Those students didn't leave school until after 3:30 this afternoon. Studies have shown that a later start time for middle and high school students show an increase in school attendance and an increase in academic performance. Again, why is this district choosing to do the opposite? Valeska Hinton starts at 7:30, as is considered a best practice. But it does not make sense for a 5-year-old at Valeska Hinton to start school at 7:30, but a 5-year-old at a primary school in kindergarten doesn't begin until 2 hours later than that. I don't understand. It seems unlikely to me that COVID or buses are related to this. I feel like once the students are at school, why can't we stay 7 hours instead of 6.5? We're there. The past year has been a difficult one for teachers, for students, for parents. But teachers, I think especially, have stepped up and done their best to provide the best for their students. We thought we were starting the year with a hybrid schedule. A week before school started, we were told we're going to go all remote. We came back to a hybrid schedule, then we went all remote, then we came back to a hybrid schedule. That is so difficult for students and for teachers. So I feel like teachers have done over and above what should be expected of them this year. And I think it's time for the board to do your part and return primary schools to an early start time.
Final speaker tonight is Mr. Mike Murphy.
Thank you, President Shaw, Vice President Wilson, Board, Dr. Karat. I'd like to start off by offering my condolences to a gentleman who is normally in this room with us tonight, PFT President Jeff Atkins Dutro, for the passing of his father. But because he is not able to make it here today, I'm going to wait a little bit longer until the next board meeting to give you all an update on the Food Quality and Wellness Committee that we had. He's one person I still needed to speak with, but that committee is doing quite a bit, and we have our second meeting scheduled for this Wednesday, so I just wanted to update the board with that. The other thing I wanted to update the board with is an update on the water bottle filler initiative. To date, since February, we have raised over $26,000. So this is going to be something that will maybe help a little bit, Mike, with the budget, if you can factor in an extra $26,000 for this feature that we want to come up with. That is enough for all 14 schools that did not have a water bottle filler station to now receive 2, and some schools are going to be receiving up to 4. I have confirmed with Dave Myers that over 30 fountains have been ordered so far. They are taking a little bit of time to come in, but they have been inspecting the locations for these filler stations, measuring, checking the wiring, and planning out where they're going to start putting these at. And this is going to be their project over the summer. But they are going to work on making sure that the summer school host schools are going to be their priority. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Karat, do you have a response to audience presentation?
Yeah, just pick up from where Mr. Murphy left off, and thank you so much, Mr. Murphy. In addition to the passing of Jeff's dad, also Mrs. Hammer lost her sister-in-law last week as well, so condolences to the Hammer family. As it relates to the two comments regarding a later start time, and the question why. And, I was reading, maybe was it last week, that even restaurants like Avani's and different restaurants are having a tough time staffing and will be doing rotating. And COVID has just impacted not only the state, our city, but also as a large district that's heterogeneous with lots of moving parts. We've taken also, as our two speakers have said, a big hit and have done really, really well, I would say, despite all of the challenges. And I remember, going on 6 years now, and Mr. Willis, those were your projects. You were in charge of the study. You did one, and Mr. President, former President, Board President Adler did the other study regarding trying to move the start time of primary to 7:30 earlier. And lots of work, a lot of work, a lot of research, a lot of surveys. And we tried that twice, and we were never able to really, get over the hump. So as far as that's concerned, yes, it is, and we know it is the right thing. Both of the speakers, they're right on the mark. All of the research talks about the younger ones, but and our parents and the community, individuals, they'll say, yes, it's the right thing, but we don't want to change, So that is what we've experienced, and we have all of the data and all of the information. So it's another project we probably will tackle again, but right now it's just really too fresh. When did we do that? Was that last year? We did that, Mr. Willis?
2 years. Mm-hmm.
2 years, yeah, so, yes, and parents and individuals will say, yes, we know it is. So that is what we've experienced, so it's hard, and the board, also, ultimately it's a board's decision, but they use the data and the information to help them inform their decision. And so because of I would say COVID and unique benefits that are being provided right now, it's really a challenge, and so we have to be creative around how we're going to get our children to school. And right now they'll be as Sandy mentioned, it's 6.5 hours, and that's just where we are right now. We're continuing to work to get them back to the 7-hour day. And so, but we're still trying to overcome the COVID challenges. During COVID, we were shut down. We were not able to recruit. We were not able to train. And those are things that we normally, so it's impacted us. We're close. We're definitely not where we want to be, but we're very, very close, and we'll definitely get there. And we'll continue to work on that later, the earlier start time. It's a lot of moving parts and a lot of continuing to educate our community. And at some point, we have to be willing to change. Probably took too long, sorry.
That's okay. We are ready for item number 9, approval of minutes from April 12th, open session 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on item 9? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, would you please call a roll?
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Claus?
Aye.
Dr. Ranking? Aye. Mr. Walther?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Information items. Item number 1, proposed expenditures over 2,500. Questions for Mr. Willits? Seeing none. Item number 2, report of requests under the Freedom of Information Act and the status of such requests. Dr. Karat.
Thank you, President Shaw. Since our board meeting on April 22nd, 2026, we received 0 requests, and there were no pending requests noted on April 26th. All were completed. So to date, we have received 11 requests at a grand total of $550. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karat. We are now ready, I believe. Yes, we are now ready for the consent agenda. Vice President Wilson.
Thank you, President Shaw. The consent agenda consists of the following items. Item 1, gifts to school district. 2, payment for travel. 3, human resource report. 4, modified calendar for the 21-22 school year, Harrison School. 5, Envision Mathematics. 6, Quaver. And 7, strategic plan for Peoria Public Schools, District 150, from fiscal year 2021 through fiscal year 2026. And that is the entirety of the consent agenda.
Thank you, Vice President Wilson. Are there any items board members would like pulled for a separate vote? Mrs. Costick. Which one? Number 4? Other items? Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda with the exception of item 4?
Moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda with the exception of item 4? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Claus?
Aye.
Dr. Ranking? Aye. Mr. Walther?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Is there a motion to adopt item 4?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Mrs. Costick.
I only wanted to pull this just because I had a couple of questions. I know at one time when we were talking, when we brought up the fact of a pilot program, there were other schools at that time that seemed to be interested, and I just kind of wanted to know what happened, whereas we ended up with only Harrison willing to be a part of the pilot program.
Okay, Dr. Karat.
Thank you, President Shaw. Thank you, Ms. Costick. So when the idea came up, there were actually about 4 schools that included Harrison and 3 other schools. And one of sort of the directive was that it needed to be done collaboratively with the team, with the entire school team. And so some buildings were not ready. So we're pretty fortunate that one building has been able to get us to this point. We did not want we did not want to we didn't want it to be coerced. We wanted it to be collaborative and amicable. And so kudos to Ms. Daniels and her team for listening to you and willing to go on that limb to say, and she's on the line ready to talk about. And there was a lot of work that was put into just getting to this point. So and it's okay. I was just really pleased at least we had one building that was willing to say we'll be willing to pilot it, and then hopefully the other ones can learn from their experiences.
I'm very happy that, you know, at least one school did decide that they wanted to give it a try, because that's the only way that we're going to find out really whether it kind of works or not. So, you know, kudos to Fabian and her staff for willing to step out of the comfort zone and take a part in a pilot program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on item 4? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Klaus?
Aye.
Dr. Ranking? Aye. Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross? Aye. Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Presentations and suggestions by board members. Oh, did I miss something?
Yeah.
Oh,
We talked about it.
I'm ready to go.
It's been a long night, sorry.
Started the car. Okay. Deliberation agenda, that's kind of important. Okay, so, you've got, okay.
I move that the expulsion be accepted as presented. That the expulsions be accepted as presented.
That is item number 8, yes.
Second. I don't know who's on
Oh, is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Klaus?
Aye.
Dr. Ranking? Aye. Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross? Aye. Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Item number 9.
We got to do each one.
Yeah. Yeah, these used to be aggregated. I promise you, they were aggregated before.
Can we ask the lawyer?
You did them all together?
Yes.
I thought that you took action on it separately.
It would be, we would make one motion that the expulsions with expulsion held in abeyance be presented as, that's, it used to be aggregated.
Okay, that's the way that it used to be done. I mean, carry on.
Okay.
We'll have a conversation after the board
Okay.
meeting about
So we'll continue this
Yep.
way and then, okay, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you. So item number 9.
Yes, I move that the expulsions with the expulsions be held in abeyance be accepted as presented.
A second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Secretary.
Ms. Costick? Aye. Mr. Klaus?
Aye.
Dr. Ranking? Aye. Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross? Aye. Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Item number 10.
I move that the expulsions with the expulsion to be held in abeyance be accepted as presented.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, Madam Secretary.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Klaus?
Aye.
Dr. Ranking? Aye. Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross? Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Item number 11.
I move that the expulsions with the expulsion to be held in abeyance be accepted as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none.
Mrs. Costick? Aye. Mr. Klaus?
Aye.
Dr. Ranking? Aye. Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross? Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Item number 12.
I move that the expulsions with the expulsion to be held in abeyance be accepted as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion. Madam Secretary.
Mrs. Costick? Mr. Klaus?
Aye.
Dr. Ranking? Aye. Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross? Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Seven ayes, motion carried.
Item number 13.
I move that the expulsions with the expulsion to be held in abeyance be accepted as presented.
Discussion. Seeing none.
Mrs. Costick? Mr. Klaus? Dr. Rankin? Mr. Walther?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross? Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Seven ayes, motion carried.
Item number 14.
I move that the expulsions with the expulsion to be held in abeyance be accepted as presented.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none.
Mrs. Costick? Mr. Klaus?
Aye.
Dr. Rankin? Mr. Walther?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Seven ayes, motion carried.
Item number 15.
I move that the expulsions with the expulsion to be held in abeyance be accepted as presented.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none.
Mrs. Costick? Mr. Klaus?
Aye.
Dr. Rankin? Mr. Walther?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Seven ayes, motion carried.
Item number 16.
I move that the expulsions with the expulsion to be held in abeyance be accepted as presented.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none.
Mrs. Costick? Mr. Klaus?
Aye.
Dr. Rankin? Mr. Walther?
Aye.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Seven ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. And presentations and suggestions by board members. Mr. Klaus, then Mr. Walden.
I had a question where we're at in the process of hiring bus drivers for next year.
Dr. Karat? There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Claus. It's picked up, and there's a robust advertisement going on. They've picked up some training. I know they've trained a couple. Let's see if so. COVID. Now that we're opening up, I anticipate things will get better as well. Josh, are you in line to add to that?
He's not.
He gets up real early. He has to be at work before 5. So, Doc, he reports to you. Do you want to add anything to that, Dr. Ike?
No, you covered it. And plus the fact that we're bargaining right now, and,
Mm-hmm.
so that's also being factored in.
How short are we from full capacity right now?
I'm sorry?
The last time I think I remember Mr. Walder asked that question actually, was it 16 to 22?
That was the number you gave me.
Yeah, and people are shaking their heads. And it's a shortage across, just like teachers.
Yes, and we've also heard about the current unemployment benefits that are also impacting it right now, but we hope that given what's being discussed currently at the federal level, all that may be taken care of, and then things will quiet down, and hiring will pick up in robust advertising that they're doing with 309. There's a company called 309
Yep.
Advertising. They are really getting it out.
Yeah, we're competing with the benefits, the the unemployment benefits as well.
All right. Mr. Walden.
Yeah, it was a presentation and suggestions. We did have last week a session here at the boardroom in regards to Thomas Jefferson and that discussion. And we had discussed, I think, at the meeting before that, Ms. Costick suggested we would only have one meeting for that. I thought it went really well in the fact that I think we had good discussion. There was some very passionate explanation for people where they were going on that. The one complaint that I got, part of I got because I hosted the thing, was that they thought it wasn't advertised often enough and that we should have an opportunity for the parents or people from TJ themselves to voice their opinion on this. I'm going to really leave that up to the board. We as a committee, I think we're scheduled to meet on the 20th, which is before the next board meeting. And we're supposed to make a recommendation to you after that, as to what to do. I'm just asking for direction from the board. If you think that one meeting was enough, then we'll go with that. If, in fairness, are getting more feedback from people who, I mean, and I would probably like to have it from people who weren't already at this meeting. I think people have voiced their opinion and stuff with it. But I'm just trying to get that feedback from you, so that I just want to be as fair as we can be for people to do that. And if we could schedule that before the next board meeting, then I think we could make a motion to move on Thomas Jefferson on the 24th. I'm just wanting feedback, from the board, is what you think on that.
Mrs. Ross?
I think that you did have the one meeting, but this has been announced and out there for.
A long
since,
time.
Yeah, since what, January, February?
We had a month of feedback.
Yeah,
We
a
had
month of feedback. and
February
then-
22nd to March 22nd for open just emails and
So
phone
it's been
calls.
out there for a while already, so I don't know.
And people would be able to speak at the 24th board meeting also.
True. That is true. That is always, always
So,
available.
right.
Other feedback, Dr. Rankin?
I just have a question. I'm not a TJ parent, so I don't know this, but how much, I know that we've done it at the district level, but sometimes things that happen at the district level don't always get to the school level. How much do the Thomas Jefferson parents know that the meeting happened last week, know that there's another meeting? Like, how much communication has come from the principal? How much communication has come from the teachers? I don't know that, since I'm not getting Thomas Jefferson emails. But I would be, we are a very collaborative district. I would be hesitant to agree to a name if we truly haven't had a meeting at Thomas Jefferson, that we truly haven't had the advertisement and the marketing for just Thomas Jefferson parents, since it will be impacting them. So I don't know the answer to that, but that's kind of where my concern is.
Well, I can answer part of that. I did contact the principal the week before, and we discussed the possibility of having the meeting actually at Thomas Jefferson or here. And we felt, partly because of COVID, there had been some issues at TJ, but here this would be an easier place to have it because we could spread people out. So they were aware of it. I mean, the principal was aware of it. I trust her that she contacted her teachers and stuff with that, because I've gotten some feedback on that. But I just want to let you know, she knew that week before we had the meeting here and stuff that was done.
Mr. Burke, were you involved in advertising to the families?
I put it on the website.
It was
That was
posted.
my contribution.
Mhm.
Mr. Wilson?
I was just gonna say, I think with the work that Thomas did and the work of the principal, I think as long as we've had this as an issue, I think it's time to move forward. And I would love to see a recommendation from your committee, that the board can take. That's just my thoughts. If you wanted to get a consensus across, from the board members.
Okay.
Other feedback? Okay. Okay, I think for my part, we've been at this for like 8 months. We did put feedback out for a month. We did the town hall. I've spoken on it on the news. It's out there. If you haven't heard by now, this is almost negligent. Like you just aren't paying attention. So that, I think we move forward at this point. All right. Yes.
One of the recommendations that I would, because it's been going on for 8 months and knowing that we will have new people on the buildings committee next year, starting in July, I'm assuming, is that that there is kind of an outline of the process you've done, so we make sure that each process is similar, so that none of the meetings have happened at the school building. So then going forward, no other meetings are happening at school buildings, and just making sure that that there's a process outlined so that we can follow that same process. So there's equity while we're doing this. So that would be one of the things that I would ask for, not knowing what committee I'll be on next year, but if I was, making sure that there was that guidance so that I could follow that the same way, and I would assume other board members would want that also.
All right. Any other feedback? Ms. Ross?
I just want to respond to Dr. Rankin. It has been done several different ways. I don't know if we want to pigeonhole ourselves into one way. Has been done depending on whether the school wanted to and school community wanted to do it, or whether it was feasible. I think this past year was COVID, this year, the reason why they didn't really, but it has been done both ways. not just changing school names, but other names that we've done. So we've done it both ways.
Sorry, I think in going back to that is that the option was provided. So, like, not necessarily it has to be here, but we went through this process, we notified the principal, the option was provided, and it was, so that we do have that choice built into it also.
Mrs. Costigan.
I was just going to say that I think as long as the processes are in place in every renaming of a school, playground or whatever is all, we use the same process. I do agree with Mrs. Ross is saying, yes, it has been done a couple of ways. I think that COVID had a big impact. We did talk about having it at the school, but just because of the dynamics of having to get all of the televised equipment and everything there, it just was not feasible. But I think as long as we have the most important pieces in place and the process is in place and we're doing it the same for each one, I think that's the most important fact. Okay.
Any other feedback? Okay, other presentations and suggestions by board members? Mrs. Costigan.
I have a concern, and yes, this is a suggestion. A week and a half ago, I believe it was, there was a shooting over on Republic, over by Glen Oaks School. And I've heard this complaint several times, not just from my husband, and I'm not speaking on his behalf, I'm speaking on behalf of all of the crossing guards that are standing out on these corners. I know for a fact, because my husband constantly, every time something happens, there's a school lockdown, these crossing guards are never notified that something is going on. And these people are out in the sight of anything that is going on outside of the school. The school locks down, nobody comes out, tells a crossing guard anything. They're just standing out there. I think that there needs to be something put in place where it's the responsibility of the security, Chief Boone, Director Boone, or I don't know what his title is.
You got it.
It's his responsibility because those people work for him. It is his responsibility to establish some kind of protocol, whereas these people that are responsible for the safety of our children are not being looked over. They need to have some kind of notification that something is going on and they need to take proper cover. Their safety is just as important as the children in the schools.
That is a good point. We did have one of the crossing guards, she came and spoke. It was actually a couple of years ago. She came and spoke about radios, or lack of radios. And
You're right.
so if we could get a number, like a count and maybe a cost of radios for crossing guards, because they should be in the loop. And in the meantime, we do have a system where they could receive messaging, text messaging. As long as they're in the system, they should be able to do that, as long as they have their phone on vibrate or something so they can hear it, feel it. But so we could do something in the interim, but I think long-term, we should probably get some radios.
I'll take it back to the Director of Security. That point well taken, very well taken for sure. We did talk about that situation, and the kids were not in session at the time, but they were on their way, and we had Chief Police, Chief Theobald. I spoke with him. He was in the area. He was kind of monitoring along with PPD, but definitely point well taken regarding communicating. So Chief Boone and I, Director Boone and I will put a plan together, but definitely point very well taken.
Didn't we have a phone system that we adopted?
That's what I'm saying. But there is a system
that we had that was in there if we.
So like I said, I think that's as an interim, but I still would like to have them in the radio.
Yeah, some of them may not have.
I was just gonna say, I don't think all of them have smartphones.
Right.
It's true.
So let them come up with a solution because they're underground.
ASAP.
Yes, ma'am.
Because there's more.
I agree.
more
It's a hot spot over there, so yes.
not just there, but.
Yeah, and we had it in the morning and we had it in the evening as well. That one day, it was,
Oh, yeah.
yep, it was not good. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Costa. I'll work on that.
All right. Any other, yes, Mr. Wadler?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, Mr. Ross.
Okay. Based on our presentations tonight, there are two, I see there are two committees. I call them advisory committees, maybe, on the legacy program and the BH 365 program. So I would like to make sure that we incorporate those advisory committees into the program where they are like the oversight for those and those two programs. And somehow we can build those in and set some yearly meetings or something to oversee that. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Walden?
My only thing was just a reminder, tomorrow is Resource Officer Recognition Day, so I just wanted to remind everybody that's it tomorrow. And stuff.
All right, thank you, thank you.
You can go to Starbucks, I think they got $5
Good, okay.
Fair choice, did you get it?
All right. Other presentations and suggestions? Seeing none, board committee reports.
The policy committee will meet next May 19th at 3:30.
All right. And
If I can reach consensus, we've got next Thursday, the 20th at 4 o'clock. Seeing how I've got most of my committee here.
And I think we are ready for adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Those in favor?
The grandson
Opposed?
just ordered pizza.
Thank you.